10 theories about Jack the Ripper that will freak you out. Number 10. The murders were part of a black magic ritual. Robert D. Onston Stevenson was a journalist with an interest in the occult who was living in London at the time of the Ripper killings. Stevenson wrote a series of articles for the Pall Mall Gazette about the murders in which he claimed they were part of a satanic ritual. In fact, he became so obsessed with the crimes that he began speaking with private detectives and Scotland Yard about his theories. Unfortunately for him, he pestered them so much, with such specific details about the crime scenes, they began to suspect he was actually the Ripper. Some people believe his articles for the Gazette were just veiled confessions. It was a Freemason conspiracy. In his book, They All Love Jack, Busting the Ripper, Bruce Robinson claims that anti-Semitic graffiti was found at one of the crime scenes. Police Commissioner Sir Charles Warren ordered it to be removed and it was never photographed. Robinson believes that this was not an attempt to avoid violence against Jewish people, but instead a cover-up. Because that graffiti told Warren something, the killer was a Freemason, just like him. See, the graffiti included the word Jewies, spelled just like that. And no, that's not just an old-timey way of spelling Jews. It refers to three men from a Masonic allegory named Jubala, Jubalo, and Jubalam, collectively, the Jewies, who murdered Hiram Abiff. Robinson believes Michael Maybrick, a Freemason and the brother of James Maybrick, another suspect, was Jack the Ripper, and the Masons helped him cover it up. Number 8. Lewis Carroll was the Ripper. It definitely seems likely that Lewis Carroll, born Charles Lutwidge Dodgson, the author of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, killed a bunch of women and left clues about it in a children's version of that book, right? No. Richard Wallace, author of Jack the Ripper, Light-Hearted Friend, a suitably uncomfortable name for this icky theory, seems to think so. He claims that Carroll left hidden messages that detailed his crimes, which he committed with the help of his friend Thomas Vere Bain, in the form of anagrams in several of his books. Number 7. Walter Sickert was the Whitechapel killer. Patricia Cornwell claims to have found DNA evidence linking Walter Sickert, a painter, to a letter Jack the Ripper sent to Scotland Yard. Of course, Scotland Yard received more than 600 letters claiming to be from the Ripper, but none of them have been definitively linked to the killer. Still, in her book Portrait of a Killer, Jack the Ripper, Case Closed, Cornwell argues that several of Sickert's paintings actually depict crime scenes from the murders. Number 6. Jack the Ripper's diary was found in 1992. In 1992, a diary surfaced that was purported to be written by James Maybrick, a cotton merchant from London, who died in 1889 after being poisoned by his wife. The diary contains graphics details of and confessions to the murders and is signed Jack the Ripper. The diary's authenticity has been called into question numerous times, but no one has been able to prove that it's fake, or that it's real. Number 5. Jack the Ripper committed murders in America, too. 3 years before the first Jack the Ripper murder in England, a serial killer called the Servant Girl Annihilator killed 8 people in Austin, Texas, in the United States. Like the Ripper, the Servant Girl Annihilator has never been identified, and there are many theories about his, or her, identity. Author Shirley Harrison theorized that the Ripper and the Annihilator were the same man, James Maybrick, a British cotton merchant who made frequent business trips to the United States. Number 4. 4 of the murders were a cover-up for the 5th. Mary Jane Kelly is widely believed to be the last victim of Jack the Ripper, but one man claims that the 4 murders that preceded hers were just an elaborate ruse to cover up the reason she was killed. Dr. Wynne Weston Davies, author of The Real Mary Kelly, believes that Kelly's husband, Francis Spurgeon Craig, was the infamous serial killer. His motive? Craig was angry that Kelly had returned to prostitution shortly after they married, so he killed 4 other prostitutes first to make it seem like there was a pattern. Then, when he killed his wife, the police would have no reason to suspect him. She was just another tragic victim of a madman, not the victim of a deranged husband who went to extraordinary lengths to conceal his crime. Number 3. The murders were a cover-up for a royal family secret. In Jack the Ripper, The Final Solution, author Stephen Knight claims that Prince Albert Victor, grandson of Queen Victoria, secretly married and had a child with a prostitute named Annie Elizabeth Crook. He claims the murders were perpetrated by Sir William Gull, an accomplished physician and rumored Freemason, in order to silence everyone who knew about the marriage and child. Number 2. Jill the Ripper. A witness to the murder of Mary Jane Kelly, one of the Ripper's victims, told a very strange story. She claimed to have seen Kelly at around 8:30 a.m. on Friday, November 8, 1888. The only problem? The coroner concluded that Kelly died around 4 a.m. that day. The witness insisted that she saw a woman wearing Kelly's clothes hours after she was murdered. Detective Frederick Aberline, one of the lead investigators on the case, wondered if perhaps the killer was a woman who had stolen and worn Kelly's clothing as a disguise. It was posited that if Jack the Ripper were actually Jill the Ripper, she would have to be a midwife because of the surgical precision with which many of the victims' organs were removed. This led to another nickname, the Mad Midwife. Some people believe that this Mad Midwife is Mary Piercy, who killed her former lover's new wife and their 18-month-old baby. Piercy slit the woman's throat from ear to ear and dumped her body in the street. The baby had been smothered to death. Number 1. DNA evidence has identified Jack the Ripper. In 2014, new DNA evidence emerged from a shawl that was allegedly found at one of the crime scenes. The shawl was never logged into evidence books because a detective took it home, planning to give it to his wife. She was horrified and put it in a box without washing it. It was passed down through their family before eventually being put up for auction in 2007, when Russell Edwards, an amateur ripperologist, bought it. Edwards immediately set about trying to procure DNA samples from the shawl, and through some serious luck, managed to find viable genetic profiles from several people. One of them was Catherine Eddowes, one of the Ripper's victims, and another was Aaron Kozminski, a Polish immigrant who had long been suspected of the crimes. It's not clear why police named him as a suspect, but notes from the original detectives on the case contain his name. He was committed to an insane asylum in 1891 after being diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.